There's a lot of conspiracy theories.
Yes, I know.
How do you feel about that?
I don't believe any of them.
You think the official story is the true story?
Yes, because here's one of my problems with conspiracy theories. They just disagree with what they've been told and what the truth is, but they don't offer an alternate scenario that makes any sense. You know, I know when you were talking with Dominic, you mentioned Building 7.
Okay, that's a big one for a lot of people.
Well, do
you remember anything about that?
I can remember. I could tell you about Building 7.
Why did that building come down?
Well, at about 12 o'clock that afternoon. Now, you remember that, so the fires have been burning since like 10 o'clock in the morning. So a couple of hours into it, I can specifically remember the cops going around to everyone, stay away from Building 7 because it's on fire, and they knew it was going to collapse, but there was no one in there, so we weren't wasting any resources trying to go in there to fight a fire.
But how could cops know? How did cops know it was going to collapse?
The cops were told by whoever.
By who?
This I don't know. I'm just telling you what I do know. Okay, what
you heard,
not what I read, what I was there for. What I can tell you, my blow by blow. Okay. I'm maybe assuming that the two twin towers collapsed, that there's every chance that Building 7 might also collapse because it was on fire also. And the sprinkler system was out because all the water mains in that whole area got busted up. Nothing was working. So nothing was putting those fires out at Building 7 either. And we didn't care about Building 7 because there was nobody in there. We're trying to save the people in the two towers, in that whole area.
What was Building 7, do you know?
Building 7 was, I think, a 48-story office building. Among other tenants, I know the Secret Service was in there. The FBI, I think, had offices in there. A lot of different offices in there. That's probably part
steel,
of the conspiracy.
Right?
What?
Steel.
Yeah, steel construction, very similar to the towers.
How does it free fall like that, man? Perfectly. I'll give you I've always said I'll give you whatever you told me about the two buildings. The two World Trade Centers. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
But how does that building collapse so perfectly?
How do you think it came down?
I don't know. To me, I'm having a hard time of accepting that one.
Well,
I'll be honest with you.
The only thing that any conspiracy theorist ever said was a controlled demolition.
What did it look like to you?
But they have no proof of a controlled demolition other than the fact that it was kind of a pancake collapse and it resembled a controlled demolition.
I mean, it felt
That's
perfect.
their only proof. Now,
what about documentaries like Michael Moore made, Fahrenheit 9/11? Did you ever watch that?
I didn't see his documentaries, but I can tell you, having read a lot of things and having read a lot of reports about the main one, two of them, Popular Mechanics and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the NIST, which is a major league organization, did a very long investigation about Building 7. And it's online for anybody to read, and I actually went over it a couple of days ago because I knew this was going to come up. And Building 7 collapsed because of all the fire in the building. Simple as that. The building when the second tower came down, some of the debris caused damage to Building 7, and that's what started the fires in that building. The debris hitting the building. And originally, people only saw 3 sides of that building, and it looked like there was nothing wrong with it. But over time, when more information was gathered, the side of the building that was facing the tower that got hit suffered a lot of damage. So those fires were burning for 7 hours. And it was, what was burning? Office furniture, rugs, drapes, paper, whatever was in there.
Yeah, but to melt steel?
Didn't melt steel. I'll get into the whole thing with you, okay?
Okay.
For 7 hours of burning. Now, this is from them doing years of work, a legit organization. And they got specific that a steel beam on the 13th floor broke off from its connection. Now, you got to remember, those buildings, 7 and the 2 World Trade Center towers, they were uniquely built in the fact that they were wide open floor spaces. So you would have long girders connected to steel columns, and you didn't have columns all over the place, just around the outside, because they wanted wide open floor spaces. So the only thing holding up these girders on each floor is where it's connected to the column on the exterior of the building. So from 7 hours of fire, steel it doesn't have to melt. The fire will never get that hot. I think you need like almost 3,000 degrees to melt steel, and I don't think those fires got any hotter than maybe 2,000 degrees. But it will do something called thermal expansion. Steel will expand when it gets too hot. And when it can't expand because it's attached to this column and it's attached to this column, it will start twisting and it will start buckling because it has to go somewhere. If it can't expand out, then it starts pancaking on itself almost. So all it took was one connection, one set of bolts screwing one beam into a column to come undone. Now that weakens something. And now another one gets weakened, and another one gets weakened. And I forget what floor they said, but it was the lower floors. Eventually, one floor gave way because it was no longer being supported on its end, and it's only supported on like both ends. Boom, it landed on another floor. That weight started getting too heavy, landed on another floor.
Yeah, but it happened so fast. Seconds.
It's all it takes, and then that just that's the same way the towers came down the same way.
So most firefighters, they don't believe the conspiracy theories.
No, because
no one in your unit, no one in your company.
I'll give you another thing that they said in there.
Did these conversations ever come up?
Yeah, sure, we've talked about it.
Did you guys say? Do you think that they did this themselves?
No, none of us. I can't speak for everyone, but everyone I know. And
you said I'm not saying to give me names of firefighters, but when you guys sat there and talked long after this happened.
No, because we were Did
it ever come up?
No. I mean,
do you believe
it came up from just people like yourself talking? You couldn't avoid the conspiracy theories. But another thing that was written in that report, even if you want to go along with the scenario of a controlled demolition, okay,
will you totally rule it out?
1,000%. All right. They give you one other thing, another fact. If it was a controlled demolition, okay, you need to hear the explosions going off for a controlled demolition. And this is what the report said. The smallest amount, I think it's thermite that they use in demolition. That's what they use to blow stuff up. The smallest amount needed to blow out those columns, to disconnect the beams from the columns, would make a sound equal to 130 decibels. 130 decibels is the same thing as standing next to a gunshot, standing next to a jet engine, or standing next to being 10 times louder than a speaker at a rock concert, okay? I was there. I was about a half a block away when Building 7 came down. And all the recordings of that day, of everyone who was there, there was no sound of any explosions. There was none recorded. There wasn't
other videos.
And the only reason this conspiracy theory ever started is for two things. One was the way the floors pancaked one on top of the other, and some other ridiculous thing that someone thought of, because when you see the World Trade Center starting to collapse, if you do it in slow-mo, you can see some of the lower floors that didn't collapse, that you can see like smoke shooting out the windows, and people are saying those are the explosions. That's not the explosions.
But there's reportings of people that gave interviews saying they heard explosions for the World Trade Center.
I've
seen those clips.
Yeah, I've never seen.
I heard explosions. There was like at least 30.
But what you heard,
it wasn't for Building 7 though.
But what anybody heard was the floors collapsing. That's what you heard. Boom, boom, boom. That's what you heard. You just think about how impossible it is. First of all, our government is basically a train wreck. Politicians in general. Who's keeping this secret for all these years? Why was this done? I mean, you really think someone came up with an elaborate plan? Hey, let's crash 2 planes into the World Trade Center, but then we'll blow it up, and then we'll also blow up Building 7. Why are we blowing up Building 7? Because the CIA has an office in there and they want to destroy evidence? You mean to tell me you have to blow up a 50-story building to destroy evidence? What kind of evidence? If there's any evidence of any plot, it's probably on a computer. Destroy the computer. It just, none of it makes sense. You know what would take to go in there to set off explosives? You would have to break down walls. You would have to get torches in there to burn insulation and fire retardant to get to the steel to attach the thermite to. Don't you think that sometime in those weeks of all that going on, people are going to, hey, what's that smell? Hey, what are these people doing in here? It's such a ridiculous. All those conspiracy theories are, to me, they're ridiculously far-fetched, because no conspiracy theorist ever offers an alternative solution that has actual facts based behind it. They just say, Nah, that doesn't make sense to me. It makes no sense that you're going to fly a plane into a building and that building's going to go boom, 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 because it's such a big event. They seem to want a big excuse, and it's too simple. It's like too archaic. Like, you're telling me hijackers from another country learned how to fly planes and hijacked a plane with a box cutter and then flew it into a building? That's ridiculous. But that's what happened. They want some elaborate, crazy excuse, big excuse because it was a big event. But that's it.
So you're standing by.
I have an open mind.
I think it's good to speak about it because
I'll listen to anyone's theory about it.
So what do you say what do you say? And this is another group that is going to add fuel to that conspiracy. What do you say to the architects and engineers of 9/11 Truth? A group of hundreds and hundreds of engineers, building people who will argue scientifically. And again, I'm not an expert on them, but I've heard of the group. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I've heard about it, and I've read a lot of things that they say. And
they say...
The main thing they say is that's impossible for a building to come down like that. But they don't provide an alternate theory that makes any sense. That, just saying that's impossible, well, then tell me what happened. You might think that it was a controlled demolition, but do you have any proof that it was a controlled demolition? And they don't have any proof. It's just, the whole thing makes no sense. Why? Because you wanted to start a war in the Middle East? It just doesn't make sense to me.
There's an easier way to start a war.
Right.
You can just lie there's weapons of mass destruction.
Right. If you want to go down that route, exactly.
You can just say there's weapons of mass destruction, and there was none. You don't have to blow up the buildings to do that. I just
go back to the one thing. Why destroy an entire building of 7 World Trade Center
to start a war?
I'm saying you already destroyed the 2 towers. What do you got? What the conspiracy theorists' reason for knocking down Building 7 is it because it housed
agencies,
CIA, government agencies, and they needed to destroy evidence. You don't have to knock down a building to destroy evidence. You destroy the hard drive on your computer. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're into this big elaborate,
were you guys offended by the conspiracy theories, firefighters?
No, I mean,
do you understand why people felt like that?
Like I said, I'm open-minded. I'll listen to anything. You want to talk about?
You didn't find it offensive.
I don't disbelieve anything. You want to talk about UFOs and
they're real now.
What?
The government said they're real.
Yeah, but I'm just people who were abducted by aliens. I don't disbelieve that. Listen, I believe in God.
If a UFO crashed, would you go to try to help them put the fire?
Sure, definitely.
If you were a firefighter, if you were still active, you wouldn't be scared to start off an intergalactic.
No, if I'm retired, I'd go. It's inbred in me. I think it's inbred in every fireman, every cop. Just want to help people.
Bek Lover.